Hi, everybody. I hope you're having lovely holidays. So, Merry Christmas, which is already, you know, been there, done that. And so, Happy New Year, everybody, right? Like, what a wonderful opportunity to be closing 2019 powerfully and with a choice to see it as a powerful learning experience, as something, a year that was teaching us all how to become more empowered, a year that was teaching us all how to become more congruent, more in integrity, and more authentic to your own way of being, your own purpose, your own calling, and your own work. So for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Helena, and I'm the person that helps you collapse your yearly income into a monthly one and your monthly income into one sale through the use of also the concept of the four-step genius strategy that we've been working on. So now it's week 4. So those of you who need to go and check the other videos, they're in the learning units in my Facebook group, High End State of Mind, which you're welcome to join. It's an intimate selection of high achievers, people who are interested in high end state of mind, people who are working already with high end pricing, or are looking, to step into that wonderful way of delivering their work and developing their own genius through that. It's also something that, in every one-on-one constellation coaching mentoring work that I do is something that we highly focus on that. And it's also something that we will be working on, and it's the thing that adds the 0 to your work, or 2 zeros or 3 zeros, right? Depending on where you're at in your level of, awareness, transformation, business overall, and how willing you are to heal the wounds and find the gifts first within yourself, and then share that, teach that, mentor that, coach that with the others who are in dire need for that service. This is not for the weak hearted ones. It's for courageous people who really want to change the world in a way that it starts and it begins within the transformation within the self, right? And it's something that also the group work will be working on. It's the ambitious leaps that we're starting on the 6th of January, 16th of January, sorry, is based around the 4-step genius strategy that I've been discussing in the last 3 videos, and today it's like the final video. And we had some great feedback on it, mind-opening experiences. And it's not something that I want you to be like blown away by per se, but it's definitely something that I would like you to consider and take to your heart and be like, really kind of like dive deep with the teachings that I'm offering, right? Because this is how all of the people that I worked with, whether it was paid or not paid, even before I knew that I was like a coach, it was something that I was, spending time with my friends. I would see I had those certain gifts, and it was really hard to kind of like, point fingers on like, what was it? Why? Like, for example, at a party, people would come to me and they would just spill their guts. Like, they would just tell me everything, what was going on in their life, and the difficulties that they were facing. And I would always, even at very early age, find ways how to encourage them, or how to help them see what was really going on, or how to help them to move through that. So that was, so that's like the basic of coaching, is like, you help the person see, how they can move from point A to point B while they're learning a life lesson, right? So this was also what became a privilege of mine to be working with. And, it's something that added many zeros to my own work as a coach. And then I was, blessed enough and courageous enough and brave enough to allow myself to bring this to the market in my own way, right? So I invested heavily in learning this. I invested like all of my time, energy, the studies into learning, how to become that, peerless person in any market, how to help transform my clients, their deepest wounds into lifelong gifts, right? And this is also where is like we all agreed, like in the last week teachings, I was kind of explaining the tangible gifts. Like that's the stuff that more or less we all know about and are quite, acquainted with in some shape and form, right? And it's something that we're like aware of, and we already know, I'm good at this, but I'm not so good at that. Like, and then don't mix that up with false beliefs, right? Because sometimes you can be telling yourself, well, I'm crap at sales, when that's just a belief. And that's a belief that you really need to be working on because it's not serving you and it's not serving your business, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to be, the best salesperson, but you are always going to be the best promoter of what it is that you do, how do you do what you do, who is your specific service meant to help, whose lives are you transforming for the better, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's a group, whether it's a corporate company, whether it's, I don't know, like with the architects, it's like a whole house, so it's kind of like a life long process that ends up in like people living in that and people kind of like experiencing that in every, in their own everyday experience, right? So there's so many different ways, there's so many different perceptions and so many different ways like our genius plays in. And so something where, for example, somebody can be so good at that, like being an architect is a skill as much as it's also a genius, because, for example, not all architects are good at organizing or are not good at listening to the, to the buyer, are not good at like conveying what they heard into an actual product. Trust me, right? So once for example, the architect that I was working with, and, we uncovered that was one of his like intangible gifts, that was what made him different from all the others. So because when you try to go and you move into the high tickets, right, your mind will need to have logical reasons as much as also like emotional reasons, so that you can like justify that if there's any like self-worth issues or confidence issues or any type of wound issues, right? And so, of course, we do the wound work, we do the healing work, we do whatever comes up. We don't provoke that. It just comes up, because we do the work. When you try to like transform your, the work that you're doing right now or so far, and it's like at a very specific, like also financial level, and you want to be moving that into a larger or more bold financial, also result, for sure stuff is going to come up, like it always does. That's just inevitable, right? And so dealing with the wounds, dealing with the doubt, dealing with the confidence as you go, like being coached on that is essential, because otherwise the first deep, like, false belief and the first like blind spot that you're just not, you can't see through it, you can't go, like you can't just bully through that, right? Because you can't think yourself out or through what needs to be processed emotionally, right? So once we worked on those beliefs and the emotions behind the beliefs and those, deepest fears and concerns, and like, will I be able to serve the people at that level? Who will pay me that much? What if I don't deliver, blah, 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 right? And kind of like justifying that with logical explanations on which is again based in the personality. So knowing somebody's personality, nobody your client's personality to the degree where you can tell them that, let's just say somebody most typically is like somebody who is very good at something will, at that, like when you need to be transforming that into something tangible, will feel like, their best spot is their weakest spot. That's always the case, right? And it's kind of like they go, well, what if I don't deliver? Like, and when I tell them, well, have you ever not delivered? Isn't it like true that you're actually a perfectionist and you always go way, above and beyond yourself to deliver the service that you agreed to, whether it's just verbally, whether it's, by contract, and they say yes. So that's something that even your ego cannot say, well, no, that's a lie, because no, that's the truth, right? And so it's interesting, how the ego can, turn our best tangible or intangible gifts into a blind spot, right? Like the worst blind spot when we're trying to up level, when we're working consciously on, I want to bring this so much like more forcefully in a good way out there, and I want to be helping those people. I want to be up leveling. I want to be that person that I want to become. I want my clients to become that too, right? And so for me, it's always been that, and that's also the clients that I track. They want to do the emotional, the mental, and they want to do also the financial work, because they want to see results on all levels. And this work is highly transformative. It's not just some sort of like, let me give you a PDF on 20 steps how you can do, high-end sales, and hear all the objections that you can hear from your people. It's none of that. That's just something that we can help you with if you're like, a beginner in sales, or a beginner, or if you feel really inadequate in how to do sales, or, what people might even like come up with. But so that's always there for you, but it's not something that I go by as, by rule, because I feel that, as you all know, that we're all, in some shape and form, very, very good and very, very equipped to be selling. And whether it's like on the movie, or, on the food you ate, or on the last vacation you were on, just remember that, like, that's that's your when you're telling to your friends how amazing it was, and how beautiful it was, and what an extraordinary experience it was, like, that's your that's where your genius for sales is, right? So just more of that and less of believing that you're crap at sales is always helpful. So the intangible gifts is where your kind of perception of selves goes, oh, I'm just another architect, or I'm just another coach, I'm just another service provider, goes from that average person to competitionless or peerless, and with a waiting list, right? And this is not something that just falls upon your lap. Don't get me wrong, you have to do the work. You have to create your signature program, because the first thing in any business is, what are you working with, right? Like when it's service based, it's like, what are you working with? What is your core work? Like, what is your program? What is your signature program? And then we, here we always go immediately to, it's all about high end, it's all about high ticket, right? And that for me is always going to be something with anything above 5K at least, right? Because that's where the real fun begins. Also attracts, not also attracts committed clients who are already ready, who already are mature enough to realize that, they need that support in their business, or they need that level of transformation, and they want more, not just for the financial, but also just for the soul, for for them being happy, for them being realizing, well, this is what I'm born to be doing, and this is like really, really important right now. And then you will see, like, it develops through months and years, and it grows into something else, it transmutes into something new, and that's all a part of evolution, right? So that's something we expect, and that's something we, congratulate, right? So Yeah, so it happens when you enter and you start to purposefully include the invisible plane in your gifts, and you play more in the vehicle of purpose through the work, right? So work is kind of like your boat, if you will, right? And then your purpose is like, what are you, like, you being in that boat, and now kind of like, what are you doing? Are you, where are you going, right? And so the invisible plane is something that, what I see again and again, is what people struggle with seeing, because, like, as I told you in the beginning, I was always the listener. I was always the one that people would come to with, when they had difficulties in life. And so it was because I was like a non-judgmental listener, and I would always try to help them to move through or move forward, or seeking, like, interesting, like, what is the lesson, right? So, but that for me is as natural as maybe for somebody else is to be a very outgoing communicator, and be very, like, directly talking out or whatever, right? That's kind of like not necessarily always my style of communication, right? So you can see that whatever your genius is going to attract a certain type of people. And that's why when we work on it, who you attract, changes. And so people who are already well aware that they want to be investing in their lifelong wealth, happiness, and freedom is the people that will use this vehicle. And there are people who are seeking empowerment. There are people who are seeking more confidence. There are people who have realized that whatever they think is their biggest wound is also that, through healing, through belief work, through putting yourself out there, with the action and actually working with clients, is what creates to transform those clients' lives. But it's also at the same time is like um, what where you uncover and discover your biggest gift, right? It's always going to be in the healed wound, right? And it's the intangible gifts genius plane is also where you intimately connect with your clients, is the unseen, right? It's where you align with the clients in such a deep and meaningful way that you can trust whoever comes into your, like, on your calls even. Like, it's so level, and it's like, it's so much based on trust, and it's so much based on those, like, intimate recognition, synchronicities. And it's not about convincing at all. It's not logical. It's just such a mutual connection where the client, the person, the prospect will not just feel excited about it, because it's usually not even, usually my first calls can be pretty intense. Like, even sales calls are so transformative that people, can be like all up in tears and going like, well, this is exactly what I need to be working on. I'm like, I know, right? So that's where you come up with, such compassion and, like, the truth. Truth is never judgmental, right? And so it's where, if they allow themselves to be open, that instant connection is created. And that's why I call them, that's like a soul client, because they will go through you. That they will be able to trust you even when they will have moments where they're, like, having really difficulties to trust themselves, right? And so they will trust you to guide them into the depths and into the heights, like into the lowest moments, and out of that. And then also, like, helping them to ground them when they're, like, sky high and all of that, and stay grateful and stay grounded and stay coachable, right? And still continue to do the work, right? Because we're still in the business. So transformational work goes very well into the business. It helps to, like, collapse time on any problem, right? Like, with this client that I'm going to talk about as a client case, like, she was a coach, and, like, she stopped coaching a while ago because she thought it was just like, she got to the stage where it got so emotional and she was just like, I don't want to do the heavy emotional work with people, right? I was like, okay, right. And then, she wanted to be more spiritual and like really include the spirituality part, which is a great part of also just her inheritance, right? And she was also a math teacher, right? So like seemingly, so many different moving parts, but I love when people are so diverse. And so like, I have complexity, right, to them, because they've been through a lot in life, and that they've learned to appreciate, and that they've learned to be grateful, right? And there was also a life story, and there was also a wonderful personality that needed some care and tough love and mommy love. And then there was also a lot of like tangible gifts and the intangible gifts yet to be uncovered, right? So, but this is the way how, through the process with the client is always something that I see. And through the welcome package, it's like questions are, created in such way that I see immediately now already what are the, what is the personality a bit, like what is the, what are the gifts, right? I can also sense whatever the biggest wound is also where most likely we will be going in that direction. And this is where the healing will occur. And this is going to become that vehicle, right, for the client, right? So all very like so important, so soulful, right? And then of course it also gets super practical, because you cannot just be etheric about stuff, because it's not about that. It's not just about the beliefs. It's also like, what do we put into action? How do we go into action? And this is something where I'm very unique as a mentor and coach, because the like after first session we're already diving into like, okay, now let's put all that in a way that it's going to make sense. Let's put that in a package that it's going to speak to that client that is already speaking to you. Your future client is already speaking to you, is already inviting you, right? Now it's more you becoming that person. And that is always, always, always the case with anybody who's using law of attraction or law of manifestation, right? So she was former teacher and was a coach before, but like very superficial levels, I would say, right? And then she was not sure how to incorporate also the spiritual ways and her desire to be more visible, while she had this like, she was she wanted to do events, but she was already doing a little bit of events, right? But it was also like it was connected with the fear of visibility, trauma issues, etc., right? And so how to incorporate all that into the packages and price it so that actually, it's so that it actually takes care of her in the best possible way, while, she feels fully supported and fully aligned to support her clients at that level, right? So I know it sounds like it's a big, like it sounds like it's a very complicated process, but trust me, it's very natural. It's very it's very, I'm not going to say there's not a lot of like mindset and fear and doubt and all sorts of stuff going in, like, coming out and up, as I said before, of course, right? But that's how we know something is actually moving, something is actually transforming. And it's like, that's what we do from day one, from the sales call, actually, right? And so as you already know, like your first whatever client is coming in 30 days. So getting ready for that, right? And getting ready for allowing yourself to receive the client, allowing yourself to receive the work, allowing yourself to give yourself that time, that experience with the client, where even when you're not perfect, because you never are, you allow yourself to express, to coach them, to consult them, to mentor them at the level where you're at, and trust that it's a perfect match. Okay, because it is at every level. Every client is a perfect match. And if you're not experiencing that, if you don't have synchronicities with your client, if you're not like most of the time just so grateful for the clients that you're working with, like, no matter like whether they're in the ups or in the up on the hill or down in the valley, but because it's such a privilege to be working with people on this level of awareness, inviting them into new awareness, calling them through marketing and copy language into the higher awareness, right? And it's also like where this client of mine, like she was really struggling, to get that clarity and to feel confident about like what is her message, right? And so that's work that needs to be done, as with everybody, right? So we worked on the wounds, we worked on the beliefs, we worked around, the beliefs around who is she helping really, and in what way. We worked around the belief that, emotional work is like too difficult, right? We worked around the belief that that whatever is making her happy, even the number, is what she should be striving for, because so many times I see people kind of like encapsulating themselves in low, meaningless numbers that society has assigned to them, and it's just a lot of BS, because it's not what if it's not what your soul wants, if it's not like, oh yeah, like that's the number, like every time, right, you're doing it, or every time you're thinking about it, talking about it, like if it doesn't excite you, if it doesn't make you really happy, it's not your number. It's, it's somebody else's number. Okay. And so sorry. So all of that in the offer, while working through the fear of being visible, while helping her create events, while helping her to position herself, while helping her to make sales and to insist on making the sales, and to go through all that, really paid off. She learned a ton. I learned so much from her also, right? And she made her first 20,000 sale in like 90 days, right? So she returned her investment, and then she went to $125,000 booked with only 8 clients, I think. And like, I think it was in 8 months with like 8 clients and 5 events, right? And so what was this like, teaching us, right? Like it was already there for her, which is something that I knew in the beginning, and she had so many doubts, but she trusted me because I was the one with more experience in that case, right? So I've done it before with other clients who had 10K in 30 days, 25K in whatever 60 days, 70K in 100 days. Like all those results, like they shape you as a coach, as a mentor, as a consultant. And so what is possible, everything, but what is doable is going to be in a bit of like a bit bigger than what the the current constriction or the current belief of the client is, right? And so this was a leap from 20K years, like 20K year to 20K sale. Okay. And this is something that I didn't know that was my genius. But when it became, and it's not something that you're like, oh my God, like this is so exciting. I mean, it is exciting, but it's also scary. It's both, right? Because you become aware how powerful the work that you do is, really and truly, and how it can change people's lives on the spot with the work. And like, some people work on this for years and years and years, and they don't get anywhere, right? Like we were able with this, with this client, we did this first massive shift in a matter of 90 days. Okay. So that's like, I don't know, 7 sessions or something like that, right? Think about that. Okay. Yes, investment was substantial because it was at the level where she wanted to see herself. Like she would never ever be able to do a 20K sale if she didn't invest at that level before. It's not possible because the mind can't logically explain that, through the whole like worth, system. Like, okay, so why should other people pay me at the level where I never invested? And I had clients who were like, yeah, but I invested much more than that, like in previous. And I'm like, I don't care, because what we're working on right now is highly transformative. It's not just some business stuff. Like it's not systems. This is like the opposite of the systems in so many ways. And then we include systems that helps you to, simplify your business, help you grow your team, etc., etc. Right? But the first thing is like you have to become that confident leader. You have to be that person that you're calling your clients to become, right? So if your marketing is telling me about, oh, I'm having, I want to have 20K clients, or I'm having 20K clients, or, whatever, then I'm like, well, you're investing at that level. Like, that's just a given, right? It's not something that, and it's not just with anybody, right? So it's with people who understand you, with people whose value aligned with you, is with people who, see kind of the same type or form of like freedom and happiness and wealth like coincide, right? So it's very, very important who you surround yourself with and who you're working with, right? And it's not, as you will see, like with me, it's not that I don't care about the branding, but it was just like the last thing on my list, right? Except, beautiful photos and all of that. But it's really not the first priority, because whenever I see people really brand it out, too much, it's kind of like that's the first, like that's a very front end for me. And I'm always interested in like what is really going on in the business, who is the leader, who is the coach, like what is the work that they're doing, are they being congruent in integrity, do they actually walk their talk, and even if they're not, like, sometimes financially, well, billionaires already, because that's not where I see myself per se, right? Like, I don't, that's not the only parameter, right? Like, the finances matter, of course, but it's not the only parameter, right? Because sometimes people's genius can be something that can be very, very helpful to the work, to the place, to the business where you're at right now, and it can be instrumental in your own well-being. Okay. So, yeah. So your own signature program, and like from now on, and I've been talking and yapping about, programs and signature work for like what, 3-4 years now, right? It's all going to be about that now, guys. Like, it's really the systems, the cult, like the funnels, the nothing wrong with that, right? But just like the non-communicative way of being with the audience is just like, it's not going to be working anymore at all, right? So the programs, the thing where people get to see you, experience you, talk with you, be coached by you, consult with you, that's where, the one-on-one is, that's where the gold is, right? Because whether you're, and there's always a shape and form, again, different personalities thrive on different platforms in different ways, etc., right? So that's something that needs to be considered and included also. But it doesn't mean that if it's in your best interest, like if it's in your best interest to become a really great marketer through video, that's something that you can hone in your own way, and you must allow yourself to change those beliefs around that, right? Like, if it's for the business, if it's for your own growth, if it's like, if that's what you see is kind of like lacking or missing in your life right now, and you're kind of like resisting it because you're like, well, it's just not what I'm good at, and you're not even giving it a try, like, you keep resisting your own abundance, right? And you keep resisting what I call like just business laws, because business laws are, again, it matters how do you do things, and from what intention, and how you show up, and who do you engage with, who your clients are. It all really, really matters, right? Because in this, like, and in service, any service based business, it's all about reputation, it's all about client testimonials, it's all about social proof to some degree, right? And it's all about client results, right? Like, not so much how did I brand myself last year. It's like, what are the client's results that you're actually able, and other other level of awareness or whatever, to help them reach, right? And Yeah. So when we're talking about new cash, when we're talking about the most profit, when we're talking about the biggest profit, right? Of course, it's going to demand an investment at a certain level, but at that level, it's also, you have to know that's the level where you can expect that, you're going to get that return, that you're going to get that first sale in. I never had a client who would invest at a 6K level and had a 30K leap ever, right? And it's not that I'm closing those doors. It just I don't know, that's how the law works, right? But every time somebody was bold enough and believed in themselves enough to make that sale first to themselves, right, whether it was 15, 20, 25K levels, sometimes even the next day they would have this most amazing turnaround with somebody that they were like, you know unclear, or somebody was kind of like yes but no, but yes but no with them, and they would get a clear yes, and they would have a sale in at that level, or a very very similar level, like in the next, I don't know, 48 hours, right? So that's not coincidence, that's not luck, that's just a law of attraction and how it works, and how law of manifestation works. So I want to ask you, what do you see as your genius work, right? Because I'm very interested in that. I want to see, how do you think you're using your gifts, or if you are, right? And also, like, if any of this is speaking to you and you're excited about this work, or your next level, if you will, right, as much as I am, and as much as I'm here to serve you at the high ticket levels, because that's a part of my genius. So excited about that, right? It's, you can join me in my one-on-one work, you could talk to me in the private message, or you can join us in the group, right? Like, the group is going to be awesome. It's going to be a small, intimate group. I'm going to be doing a lot of one-on-one, teaching and coaching. There's going to be a lot of space for Q&A, and we're going to go and touch upon all of the points that I've been mentioning for the last 4 weeks. How to add, a zero to your price tag, how to step into that lethal focus and super productivity mindset, how to stop your insecurities to keep, bringing in your sales and income leaps. And, also we're going to be working on your first level of genius high-end offer, right? So let's say if the investment is around 5, 6, 7K, like, I would say that well, 6K is a payment plan, 5K is the full pay, and then 7K is for those who want to move deeper into, whether it's a signature system, which